You're listening to Three Kitchens podcast, hosted by home cooks Erin Walker and Heather Dyer.
Are you tired of cooking the same old things? So are we. Let's all get inspired, cook better, and eat great food.
Okay, well, enough of that nonsense. Straight to business now, Heather.
Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Three Kitchens podcast. I'm Erin Walker, and joining me as always is my co-host Heather Dyer. Hello, Heather.
Hello there.
So today I am taking the lead on sharing some food for thought. And these are our new episode formats for this season, where we're discussing something interesting that we've come across that might have a tie to food in some way.
Yeah, it could be a loose tie. But
Loose tie, strong tie.
Yeah.
We just got some fun facts. So in our first episode of Food for Thought, Heather introduced us to fortune telling and kitchen witchery, and she attempted to tell my fortune using cheese and the art of tyromancy.
Attempted being the key word there. I don't know how to do it. I just made up some stuff based on what I pretended I saw in her cheese. It was really hard. Whoever actually has this figured out must have such good imagination to see what's in there.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so today, this episode of Food for Thought was sparked by a scientific article that Heather shared with me. And as our regular listeners will know, I'm a big nerd and I have a background in the sciences. And Heather knows this is about me too, which is why she's sending me science articles.
And then Erin, I texted her the article, and then Erin said, at one point, she said, "Sending me science articles is my love language."
Yeah.
This is how much she loves to read published articles in science journals.
Well, it sparks the rabbit trail of my brain to just hop down all over the place. So now you guys get to follow that along with us, and hopefully it is a clear path and not chasing a rabbit through a very dense forest.
I have faith in our listeners to keep up.
So the article that she sent was recently published at the University of Calgary, which is our hometown university.
One of them.
One of them. And this study found evidence that was able to show that early humans were eating a diet with more carbohydrates before their teeth were suited for this diet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anything that we can do kind of deciphering the past and looking at how food has influenced our evolution and what we have today, and then, maybe how it's changing over time, I find that's all super fascinating.
I knew you would. And so did I when I saw the article pop up. This feels backward to me. But I'm sure you're going to talk about that. But that was the first thing that came to mind to me was like, well, they started eating it before they were capable of eating it? Like, how does this work? So I'm so keen to learn more.
So let's see if this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the carbohydrates, or I would like to think of them as grains that were available at the time, required a lot of chewing. So these aren't like the easily accessible, box of pasta that we boil up and eat.
Right.
So first of all, I think what's really cool is they were able to figure out that we were, as early humans, eating this before our teeth had adapted to this, because we have all these samples of human and early human skulls and teeth that we can kind of do some of this analysis on. And so what they did is they found traces of these carbohydrates on the teeth of early humans before their teeth became larger and flatter, which would mean they're more adapted for chewing and extracting all of that high energy food that's trapped inside of carbohydrates. Or what they were able to determine was that it took about 700,000 years before the typical size and shape of early human teeth matched that chewing requirement. So I think this is so interesting because we can show how, or this information that we got was able to show how there was this food or there was this resource that humans wanted or needed the energy from, and they just started to ingest it, even if it did take more chewing and more work and probably maybe some tooth damage in there.
Do they know why do they have a hypothesis as to like why they started eating this food that they weren't really suited to? Like I picture it being like if we today just started chewing on like bamboo, like picturing like those bamboo
Right.
that you see panda bears chomping away on or something, thinking like, what if we were so desperate, so hungry, and we saw like horses eating some kind of grass, and we were so desperate that we picked it up and started gnawing away on it too. What would make them start to eat something they weren't really suited to eating?
So my best answer would be is that accessing that resource gave them a benefit in order for them to start putting energy into like finding it and eating it. So even if it like your teeth weren't ready for it, it still was favorable for you to eat it. And so I think the best way to think about it is that the more of this food that these early humans were able to ingest, the better quality nutrition they had and the better survival they had. And so there were different people all throughout the population with different structures in their teeth and their jaw. And those people who had just randomly occurring flatter or larger teeth were able to get a greater benefit from this. And so if those people who are able to access more of this food and had the better teeth for nutrient extraction were able to survive and reproduce more often than those who didn't have that dental structure and passed on their dental structure to their offspring, over time is when we would see that change in their teeth in the population.
Mm-hmm.
So because evolution isn't forward thinking is something we always hear in the scientific community or when we're trying to bring evolutionary science out into more general population communication, is that it can't look ahead and be like, oh, it would be much better if I had those teeth to eat that grain, right? You have to go through the process of struggling and having a benefit to having some certain variation over many generations get passed down to your offspring so that you end up with these population level changes where the tooth and jaw structure changes.
Right. Survival of the flattest teeth.
Yeah. So like if you imagine Jane and Joe, early human, who had bigger teeth in their mouth and they were able to eat this food, whereas the other people in that population, maybe there was some sort of the hunting season was bad, or there was a disease that went through the animals that you were eating or the stuff that you were eating, and you didn't have access to that food anymore, and you couldn't eat enough to survive and reproduce, whereas Jane and Joe Flattooth did, then they survived and passed that on.
There are other factors at play to your survival and your carrying on and passing on, reproducing and carrying on.
You don't know what's going to be favorable in the environment you're going into, or you don't know what random variation you might have in you just because we're all different. If for some reason having blue eyes versus brown eyes suddenly gives you the ability to survive better and pass that on to your babies and they survive better, over time you're going to see that new trait more clearly in populations, right? I thought it was really cool that the structure of our teeth and jaws can influence what we eat, and then what we eat also influences the shape and structure of our teeth and jaws. So it's kind of like the two play hand in hand and you don't really know what's going to be best.
Yeah.
So then my brain, this is where you get to come down Erin's brain path.
Oh, good. We're not there yet, folks.
But I did want to, okay, before we move on, I did want to add in something that you brought up that I'm going to use. When you say survival of the fittest, it actually doesn't mean how physically fit you are. Fitness is an ecological measure of how much of your genetic material is passed on to the next generation. Survival of the fittest is really more what traits get passed on from one generation to the next. So it's not necessarily like how fit you are. It has more to do with what traits you have that are being passed on and how successful you are in reproducing.
You have to be fit to reproduce.
I mean, that's
Okay,
up for
you're
debate.
right. That is debatable. That's debatable. In
But
modern times, that is debatable. But I think in those times, hey, I read Clan of the Cave Bear back in the day.
Yeah.
There, as a 12-year-old or whatever. It was the fittest dude. I mean, I think those were Neanderthals that they were talking about, but it was the fittest dude who spread his seed around. Okay, we need to edit.
No, but this is great though, because this is totally what it's about. It's all about you getting your genetic material into the next generation, right? And whether that's through being a dominant male of a harem, like you would see in a lot of like ungulate populations, it's the same thing here where if I was to have 12 kids and you were to only have 2 kids, good God, let's hope that never happens. I would be more fit ecologically than you would be. It's a funny word that we use in ecology, and it can be very broadly misinterpreted, but yeah, it's about how much of your genetic material is getting passed into the next generation.
Hey listener, we're just blown away by the kindness and generosity of our guests on the podcast. They lend us their time and share their knowledge with all of us so we can learn to be better cooks and bakers at home.
If you enjoy our guest episodes, please see their links below in the show notes. Go follow and support them too. And if you have an idea for a guest, please send us a message. We'd love to hear it. Now, let's get back to this episode.
Right.
Okay, so follow me down my brain trail now, Heather. Where does your mind go next when we're talking about evolution, diet, and teeth?
You're really putting me on the spot here. Where does my brain go? My brain, and it may just be in our frame of what we do here, is like, what was that food, and how did they prepare it? Now, I know that's not what you're thinking about. I'm quite sure, but when you just say carbs, I'm like, are we talking about like root veggies, or what are we talking about?
Yeah. So I'm going to come to that later on, because I think I have a good example that's going to kind of full circle this, maybe.
Okay, good. So my brain jumped ahead is what you're saying.
Your brain jumped ahead.
Okay.
The next thing I started thinking about was wisdom teeth, because I was thinking about jaw structure and teeth changing over time. And I thought, are we kind of seeing the reverse of this with wisdom teeth? Because this new diet in these early humans very long ago were selecting for longer jaws and more room for more teeth for more chewing.
Mm-hmm.
But as we got these bigger jaws and these more teeth and we started extracting more energy, our brains got bigger. And we started figuring out different ways to prepare this food so that we weren't spending our entire day chewing on some hard seed to get the energy and nutrients we needed. So that got me thinking, if we don't need these teeth that we developed in the past so much, are we starting to see changes in the structure of our jaws now that we've had many generations and years of different foods that we've been able to eat? So we've had these soft, high energy foods. We've been agriculturalists for a really long time in our history. So like, is that affecting our wisdom teeth and our chewing teeth and these teeth that were essentially like really big changes in our diet and our history as human beings now that we can see on the other side?
Mm-hmm.
So question for you then, did you have your wisdom teeth removed, Heather?
So I only naturally had 3 wisdom teeth. 2 of them were pulled.
Right,
and then the one that's left behind, the hygienists always call my ice cream cone tooth, because it is literally It's almost like a quarter of a, if you picture a
Oh,
molar as being sort of like those four roots, it's like one. It's one little, it's back in there
interesting.
up top. Yeah, it's tiny, tiny little one back there. Completely useless. It's hard to floss. I don't know why they didn't just take it out when they took the other two out, honestly.
Most people do get their wisdom teeth removed because they don't fit in their jaw. They come in funny.
Hmm.
And so I found a study that was looking at jaw development in humans. And so this isn't over time, as we were talking about before. This is just over like a lifespan. So how our jaws develop within a lifetime. And so their study showed that eating hard and crunchy foods in childhood stimulates the growth of our jaw bones and the length of our jaws, and that growth stops after we reach adolescence. So if you haven't spent your childhood chewing vigorously, then your jaws aren't big enough to receive these teeth that are going to come in your late teens, early 20s,
Yeah.
right? So, because our diets are so much softer and more blended in childhood, our jaws just don't get big enough to accommodate these wisdom teeth. And so they're taken out and removed. If we are in a world where we don't have dental care, we can expect that anybody who was eating soft foods before we had dental care, because I'm going to say dental care is pretty recent kind of
Yeah.
thing going on in our population.
Hmm.
If your wisdom teeth caused you pain and discomfort, you're maybe not surviving and reproducing.
Right. Okay.
Following me?
Hmm.
So maybe we would see this trait reversed in human populations.
Okay.
So go down this evolutionary thought process with me again. We have a naturally occurring variation in having or not having wisdom teeth. And now the population that is able to survive and reproduce more often is the one who has no wisdom teeth. And that lack of wisdom teeth is passed on to the offspring. Over time, there's an absence of wisdom teeth in the population.
Hmm.
Clear?
Yeah.
So I found some data that was showing a variation geographically in the absence of wisdom teeth in different populations of people around the world. Because this is something that I think we're seeing now that our food and our diets are changing. And I would like to wonder how dental care plays into it, but I'm going to say there just hasn't been long enough dental care to say that that can or cannot affect the prevalence of developing wisdom teeth in a population.
Hmm. Yeah.
But let's just think of these populations where we're not getting dental care. So those teeth are upset, your mouth is unhappy, angry, infected, it could cause death. So you're not reproducing, you're not having any kids. So in Bangladesh and Korea, we see about 40% of people on average do not have wisdom teeth.
Hmm.
In India, about 10% of the people there do not have wisdom teeth. For European Americans, like you and me, Heather, about 10 to 25% do not have wisdom teeth. And in indigenous Mexican or Central American populations, 100% do not have wisdom teeth.
Really?
That was the number that I had reported in this article. So now follow, this is the science of Erin.
Okay.
So don't quote me and say that this is what's happening, but
You don't quote any, just as a rule, just don't quote
just don't
any
quote anything,
here.
you know? This is just my extrapolation based on where my brain started like exploding as I was reading through this and putting all this together. If you remember back in season 4, episode 7, I did a great big nerd out about corn.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So 9,000 years ago, corn was a hard carbohydrate that they genetically selected for softer kernels that were more palatable and easy to eat and more dense. So there were more of these kernels on a corn cob. So the corn that we see today has been around for about 6,000 years.
Okay.
So if the indigenous people in Central America started having access to this softer, high energy food where they didn't need those wisdom teeth, and those wisdom teeth started causing pain and infection, over time, that trait would be gone.
That seems like very short time period for that, don't you think? That's like it seems quick to me.
It seems really quick.
Yeah, fascinating.
But that's my Erin science for the day. This is where I went down, and I thought this was really interesting because this whole phenomenon of wisdom teeth, I think, because we're seeing these articles and this evidence of how our teeth became a certain way, I think we're also living through a time, or we're always living through a time where things are changing, but we're seeing it now also maybe in the opposite direction.
Yeah. When you can imagine the ways that we are affecting our own evolution at this moment, even if we will not live to see the outcome, right? But it's to imagine that thing I'm eating today for dinner, or that I may have made a habit of chewing on, or when you were talking about little kids crunching, crunching. We feed our kids soft food.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, our babies grow up on pureed stuff.
Yeah, like we feed them soft things, and they don't really chew on don't crunch away on much of anything for a long time.
No.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
It's really interesting to me that, maybe this is something we see. I don't know if there's research out there to support my hypothesis, but I feel like it's the good backwards example of losing this ability to chew to get more energy for our big old brains.
Interesting that group of people don't have wisdom teeth.
Right? I just want us to evolve to have shark teeth because they just get new teeth all the time, so they don't ever have to worry about cavities. I think that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it seems silly that you have once you are an adult, that's it. Take care of your teeth because that's all you get. Terrible. Terrible teeth.
So remember to floss and brush.
Yeah. There's your PSA. This episode sponsored by the Canadian Dental Association. Call us. Yeah, that's interesting stuff, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you're gathering around with family, survey who's got their wisdom teeth, what kind of weird dental anomalies exist in your population. Who knows what your family's carrying along on their little genetic backpacks. All right. I hope that gave you some food for thought.
It sure did. Thank you for doing all that research. Look, all I have to do, you guys, is send Erin a scientific journal article, and
I'm feeling manipulated.
And now for the fine print. Links to recipes and other things we talked about in this episode can be found on the show notes or our website, www.threekitchenspodcast.com. Come say hello on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, and TikTok. We'd love to connect. And if you enjoy the show, pass it on. Word of mouth is the #1 way people learn about new podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Well, the problem is getting the research out of the mouth hole in a way that makes sense.